Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here, and today we are going to be taking a look at something completely different. Uh, this is History Maker Golf, Championship Golf Simulation board game by Play Classic, I believe is the name of the company that makes these games. They have a variety of different games simulating baseball, professional wrestling, bowling, I think hockey. Um, the reason why I got this game is we were recently talking on the Facebook Dungeon Dive group about some different games we would like to see, and I mentioned something about a golf style like RPG board game, kind of like the game Golf Story that you can play on the Switch, on Nintendo Switch, but with less clicking through dialogue. That's one of my least favorite things about console RPGs and actually PC RPGs also, is clicking through poorly written, for the most part, dialogue. I just don't find that fun. I find some of the gameplay elements of Golf Story pretty interesting. But I was just thinking how cool it would be to have like a sports style RPG board game. And somebody posted a link to the History Maker Golf game. And I looked at it and I bought it within minutes because I thought it looked so fascinating and so interesting. And it kind of fits in this. There, you are going to see why I am so interested in this game, because it does fit into this kind of track I'm on right now as I'm thinking about, my game that I'm designing, that has started and stopped and been redesigned and scrapped dozens of times in the last couple years. And as I am playing more of these smaller boxed games, games that abstract out all of the boring stuff and only focus in on the interesting things, on the exclamation points, on the things that actually matter on an adventure or on a golf course. And this game does that so well. And I actually think that a lot of the games that I cover, games, dungeon dive games, adventure games, could actually learn a lot from this game. And this kind of design would benefit a lot of the games that I talk about a lot. So I know next to nothing about golf. My dad's a golfer. My brother-in-law was a semi-pro. They love golf and they watch it all the time. I used to enjoy watching golf on Sunday afternoons when I had network television. It is a relaxing thing to do. It's a relaxing way to pass the time with some friends, with family. I don't dislike golf, but I just don't really know anything about it. So I'm going to probably be butchering some of the golf terms as we look at this game. So you'll just have to bear with me if you are an avid fan of golfing. But the way that this game works is History Maker Golf has abstracted away, it has done away with all of the things that don't really matter when you're watching a golf game. You know, the walking from hole to hole, the walking, the chasing, the walking after the ball, the golfer and the caddy discussing what clubs to use or strategy. All of the stuff that a lot of times we think we want in a game, the minutia, the little details, a lot of times those things aren't really actually interesting. And so what this game does is it works kind of like you are watching a highlight reel of a golf match. And the person who has made the highlight reel is in control of the camera, and they have chosen to shoot only the most important parts, the most exciting parts of a golf match. Those would be the tee off, the exciting shots from the fairway, like out of trees, out of roughage, out of a sand trap, out of a bunker, around hazards, those neat shots that are fun to watch and cheer for, and putting. And so you can actually play this game. You can play a hole in a matter of seconds. and it's really fascinating. It is probably more of an experience, more of an activity than a game. There are some choices you do make while you are playing the game, but it's mostly you're just it's almost like simulating watching golf rather than playing it. Now, come to find out, there are quite a few games like this. I did not know they existed. Somebody was telling me that there are all kinds of like World War II and war games where you roll dice and you look up charts just to see what happens. You kind of recreate battles, you recreate situations by using a pull of dice and different lookup tables. And some people really like those, some people don't. I'm not a huge fan of war, of like real war, real world wars. I'm probably more of a fan of golf than I am war, so I don't like a lot of war games. But I am interested in checking more of these games out and kind of encouraging people who are making fantasy games and adventure games and science fiction games to start incorporating some of these elements into the game. Lately, since I've been playing a lot of games like Rogue Dungeon and Iron Helm, Dungeon of D, which I covered yesterday. These smaller box games where you're not moving a character from space to space. And the more I am playing games like that, the more I am leaving like big tiles behind. I'm realizing that like so many of the things that I think I like about games really aren't needed. And moving a pawn from space to space is kind of just a big time waster, because a lot of the times in games when we are moving on tiles, the tiles themselves don't really have anything interesting going on. At best, they are another display of good art, which that is great. But the interesting things in a game like Warhammer Quest, for instance, the interesting things are happening on decks of cards or on lookup tables. They're not actually happening on the map boards. Because in the vast majority of the games that I cover on a map board, facing and distance really don't matter. It's kind of binary. You're either adjacent or you're not adjacent. You're either in range or you're not in range. That is really all that matters. All of the traps, all of the encounters, all of the cool story elements, those all come from cards. And so we end up with these games in these massive boxes that take up all kinds of space on the table. And really, the things that we are interested in are in books or in decks of cards. And the moving around the map, you're just kind of wasting time waiting to get to that next cool moment. And so I would appreciate, I think, going forward if more games kind of abstracted out that boring stuff. And, you just don't need it. It's not necessary to create a fun experience. So this game, History Maker Golf, comes with a huge number of golfers. Now, this component quality is pretty bad. These are just barely cardstock. I think there's like 120 or so different golfers here. Out of that 120, I'm familiar with about 4 of them. That tells you how much I am into golf. Of course, Phil Mickelson, Tiger Woods, Fred Funk, and Davis Love III. I played a round of golf with Davis Love III yesterday. And each of these golfers has a number of keywords. They have keywords associated with how they tee off, how they use their woods. And Davis Love the third is a bomber and a legend when it comes to using woods. When they're on the fairway, they are using their irons, and he is a champion, a hero, and a laser using irons. Now, each one of those, though, has that little dot next to it. That means there's a chance that he is one of those. And we'll go over the chances later. When he's putting, he has a chance to have to be rust, and he has no qualities when it comes to recovery. So that would be like getting out of a hazard. And then sometimes his experience comes into play. He is an icon, and he can or cannot be dynamic. And each of the different golfers is going to have a number of keywords that they are associated with that golfer. And so that is kind of how they make their characters. And there are rules in the game that you can get. I think they're online for free, where you can make your own golfer, and you have I think you can choose a certain number of these keywords to use. Now, just because they don't have a keyword, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad at that, because sometimes the keywords will have bad situations involved with them just as many times as they would have good outcomes. So imagine if this was a dungeon crawl game, and instead of all these different golfers, these were different heroes that you could choose from. And the heroes would have names. They would probably have a class. They would have certain keywords associated with their class that would allow them to react and allow them to tackle different situations in different ways while they were exploring the land, while they were exploring the dungeon. Okay, so this game also comes with a number of courses. The box comes with 2 courses. There are dozens and dozens of courses that you can buy from their website, and people have made local, like municipal courses as well that you can download, fan-made courses. So I played as Davis Love III yesterday and around at Augusta, Georgia, and each hole has a card associated with it. It's going to tell you your par. It's going to tell you the length of the course, 445 yards there. It's going to tell you a little bit about the course. This is a straight shot with special care to avoid bunkers on the right. Green is legendary for its difficult with a 6-foot breaks, not uncommon. And then you're going to get this hazard icon there, which means that certain parts of the course are like far more advanced, far more dangerous. Each hole will have certain keywords associated with it. It can be cordial or double cordial, friendly, a direct, daunting, and challenging. And then those are sometimes have the dot next to them, which means there's a chance for that to happen. And then each hole will also have certain dice pips shown. And that comes up when you are teeing off and you're determining whether the hole, the course is controlling the action or the golfer is controlling the action. So imagine these not being holes on a golf course, but imagine these being different elements in a dungeon, different elements in a fantastic land, in a space station, in a cavern. You know, this might be the entrance. This could be the first corridor down into an open room that leads into a sanctuary or a fountain. These would all be different rooms that have different keywords associated with them. Different dice pips to maybe simulate how dangerous, how easy it is to search for things. And then on this game here, depending on whether or not the course is controlling the action or the golfer is controlling the action, well, then certain things are going to trigger and certain dice results are going to tell you where your ball landed, whether it was in the grass or the trees or maybe a bunker. It was on the fairway. It was a good shot. It was a bad shot. So sometimes you will be looking at this, and then sometimes while you are playing, you will be looking in this game action book. And this has all of the lookup charts that you will need to play a whole round of golf. They are separated mainly by the par for each hole. So we have a par 3, we have a par 4, par 5, and then we get into some more detailed charts where you're looking at your short game on the green, and then different focuses of the golf cam, of like the cameraman on a televised golf match, where they're going to zoom in on certain players. Sometimes the gallery, the audience, sometimes they will groan at a bad shot. Sometimes they will cheer. And so depending on when the gallery groans or cheers, that will affect your play in different ways. There are these blue chips and these red chips that you will get at certain points. Blue chips are mostly good. Red chips are mostly bad. When the crowd cheers loudly for you at certain points, you're going to get these blue chips, and you can spend those to take control of a hole. You can spin these to putt better. These red chips sometimes are mostly bad, but there are strategic ways that you will need to spend these as well. And then there's also a golf cam for when you are on the green for detailed things that happen on par 3, 4, and 5. There's a golf cam on the course. And then we have these sand hazards and bunkers for the different pars. So when your ball lands in a sand trap there, you're going to look at that chart. You have your rough, when you're in the roughage there, when you're in the trees, when you're in or around water, so water hazards there. You have your golf cam for your experience and your now comments. And this starts to play against the golfers, kind of their mentality, their morale, because they can be a prospect, they can be an icon. You know, if they're a prospect, if they're new and up and coming, if they've been around for a while, they're going to have different experience, and how that experience is going to influence how they were playing. And then it's going to take little snapshots of now, of is the golfer hot or cold? Are they stormy? Just different little keywords that are going to, again, trigger how they are playing. And then we have the different golfers, their mood, like I said, stormy or sunny. You know, are they angry? Are they approaching the hole aggressively, or are they more nonchalant about it? And then these special results, which I have not rolled on yet, so I don't know what these special results, level 1, level 2, and level 3 are. I haven't used those yet. And then there's also on the back, there is a chart where you can apply different weather effects on the course depending on the month that you want to play in. So you can play like a match stroke. You can just play a head-to-head game with a couple of golfers going out, looking to see who plays the best, who wins the most holes, or who has the best total score at the end. Or this game could also simulate an entire tournament. And I haven't done that yet. It's pretty involved, but it's also pretty quick. And the tournament will actually place every single one of these golfers, and it simulates an entire weekend or week-long golf tournament with hundreds of golfers and how they place and who's in contention, who is out of the running but still playing. It's really fascinating. The last thing that this game comes with are these caddy cards, and you can deal out a number of these to each player, and then they can use each one of these one time during the game. So it adds another point of decision making there. Oh yeah, we also get these little cards here, which are even more little focused in on the green for putting. Sometimes the audience will strongly applause or a polite applause, and that will affect different things, different results for your, if you're going for a double bogey, par, birdie, and eagle, and what you need to roll there, more putting. And then when you're out of contention, when you're playing a tournament and a golfer falls, I think it's like 6 strokes behind, they've kind of determined that it's almost impossible for a golfer 6 strokes behind to come back, but you still want to play them in the tournament. Well, then you're going to have this super abstract way that the golfer is going to go through the tournament. So imagine these being, in a dungeon crawl, these might be, you might have a treasure chest card or a trap card or maybe a combat card or something a little more detailed that you could zoom in on for different circumstances. And like these charts in the back, they could be, different types of traps, a pit trap or a spike trap, and depending on how your adventurer is handling the dungeon, is he in control of the dungeon, or is the dungeon in control of him? That kind of thing. Is he Indiana Jones at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark, when he has his whip and he has his wits about him, or is he Indiana Jones after he's tossed the idol and he's lost his whip and he's he's at the mercy of the dungeon, then that kind of stuff. And you could also have, if your adventurer is getting beat down, they could have different moods that they are experiencing, and that could happen. That could dictate different ways that they are going to approach different situations in the dungeon. But this game is really fascinating. I can't say that I love the theme because, like I said, I'm not super into golf, but I had a blast playing this yesterday. I'm really looking forward to playing this with my dad when we can finally get together, actually, after we've all been vaccinated. And I'm interested in studying these kinds of games, these lookup games, and encouraging designers of dungeon crawls, of adventure games, of the kinds of games I usually cover to start maybe incorporating things from this. So it's even more different than something like D100 Dungeon or Four Against Darkness. Those games, you are still plotting out maps. You are still doing some of the boring stuff. Um, and I don't mean boring in a bad way. You're still doing some of the detailed things that sometimes just feel like time wasters until you get to the fun stuff. So let's just take a real quick look at how this plays. I do wish that the rulebook had pictures because I don't know a lot of golf terminology, and this is the first kind of game I have played like this. I did have some trouble learning the game. It's a relatively simple game, but because it's so new, it uses a lot of verbs that I'm not familiar with. A game like this, a sports game like this, is not part yet of my gaming vocabulary. I'm illiterate in this kind of game, and so learning it from scratch was a little hard because I wanted to make it more complicated than it was. I ended up watching a couple of videos online, and that's a whole, oh my God, that is a whole new world of YouTube board gaming, sports games. Very different styles and presentation. Yeah, it's a whole new interesting world that I'm enjoying learning about. But the game is pretty easy. So let's just say we were playing with Davis Love III again, and we were playing at Augustus, Georgia here, the Champions course. We're at hole 1. So I would take my score sheet here, which I got to reach for my pen. All right, so we're going to play Love here. I'm going to write that down. This is a par 4, so we're going to write down par 4 there. So we know that we're going to be probably looking at this page here for par 4. And so what you do is you take your pool of dice. This dice here, the white dice, this represents if the course is in control or the golfer is in control. If you roll that and it is a 2, 3, 4, 5 on this hole here, then the course is in control. Okay, these the green die usually has something to do with your putting, your short game. And then these two D6 here, these usually determine something about just how accurate, maybe how far. These are kind of like randomizers. And then this is just a 50-50 chance. And this triggers those dotted words. Anytime you roll that, if the green comes up, then those dotted words trigger. If a blank comes up, then any dotted word doesn't trigger. So this is just a 50-50 die that you will sometimes be rolling. And so what you do is you roll your pool of D6 here, and you're looking at a 5, a 1, a 6, and a 1, and it looks like the dotted words are going to trigger. So you compare the white die there is a 5. That does mean that the course is going to be controlling this hole. So when that happens is you take your metallic die and your black die and you put them in ascending order. So that's 1, 6, so that's 16. So then you look at your hole, and at 16, I am on a square. So I think that means things are good. I gotta look that up real quick here. Okay, yes, so that 16, that square means I hit a pretty good shot. The course is still in control, and I am on the course here. And then I would look up, I'm still at a par 4. So then I would use the green die result to figure out, okay, is the hole cordial? The hole is daunting and challenging. So depending on what the green die rolled, then you would find that it's an either or statement. So is it a cordial hole or a daunting hole? And then that would tell you how you would finish up that hole, whether you have a clutch putt for bogey or maybe an easy putt for par, a difficult putt for par. And then the way that you would then go on to finish up the hole is you would find out what you needed to putt. If you had a moderate putt for birdie, you could mark that, and then you would re-roll your white die to see, okay, I need a 1 or 2 to make the birdie. I got a 3, so he missed his birdie putt. So then he's going to go on to a par, and then you would move up to par. You would go from moderate to an easy putt for par. And an easy putt for par is you roll 2 dice, and as long as you don't get a double 6, you make the hole. So he would hit par for hole number 1, and that's it. So an entire hole is like 2 or 3 rolls of a couple dice, and it can be done in a matter of like less than a minute. And sometimes you can play through an entire round of golf just getting the highlights, just getting the fun stuff, just getting the cool stuff in like 20 or 30 minutes. Throughout the match, you're going to be getting different blue chips, and then like I said, you can spend those on different things. You can spend those to gain control of the hole. You know, if you want your golfer to take control, when the golfer takes control, that's when you look at this book here, depending on the par. So if you were to roll this, and let's say the golfer had control and you were on a par 4, you would take the dice and you would look at them in ascending order again. So 2, 4, 6. And then you would consult this chart here, depending on if they were hitting off a tee shot or a second shot. Depending on the keyword of the golfer, you would hit to certain locations, depending on the mood of the golfer, and then you would consult other charts to just figure out how you are getting to the green and how you are going to putt and finish up the hole. So a really fascinating game. I think there's a lot that I can learn from a game like this as I am designing my own game, of not being afraid to abstract out the details and at the same time learning about different ways to focus on the interesting things, the things that we remember about the games we play. You know, I never remember moving my pawn from space to space. Those are not the things I remember. I remember drawing up the cool card, of avoiding the trap, of hitting that final blow against a powerful monster, of finding cool loot. And so I really think it's important for game designers to focus on the things that tell the cool stories. And that's what this game is. This game simulates a golf story. This game is all about creating memorable moments, and only the memorable moments, and completely getting rid of the things that we don't remember about the games. So yeah, History Maker Golf, really interesting game. I am incredibly happy that somebody pointed this out to me, because it has opened up kind of a whole new realm of tabletop gaming for me. So all right guys, well I hope you enjoyed that look at something completely different on the Dungeon Dive, and we will talk to you later. Bye bye.